Hello and welcome to the Alliance Pro Wrestling Network Sunday special interview. Very excited today. I have a guy coming back today. I've interviewed him a number of times. He's a star on the indie scene. I think he's still the crossbody wrestling heavyweight champion, and he runs Go Hard Pro, a very new promotion. Very happy to welcome back to the show, Holden Albright. Welcome back to the show, Holden.
Thank you very much for having me back, Lewis. We've done this like a bunch of times over the multiple years.
Yes, and it's always a fun time, and I'm glad we're doing it again, man. But I have a you posted something yesterday. I just want to get a backstory on this.
Oh
A
God.
very serious post. You posted out yesterday on Facebook questioning how many of you do puzzles. So what's the backstory on that, man?
So I think it was Just Insane was the first person that I saw like openly mention it, and then Hackers definitely mentioned it too, where he'll just have a puzzle set up, and him and his wife will like walk by it and put a piece or two together every now and then. And then I keep hearing it's one of those things that once you hear it once, you notice it everywhere. And I would constantly hear and see people mention puzzles. And my last three trips grocery shopping, I've like looked at puzzles, and there's like I can go and get like a 500 piece puzzle or 750 or 1,000, and at Costco there's like bundles that include a map and a way to save it and such, and so overwhelming that I'm like, I want to put that question out there. I'm like, okay, well, who's into puzzles? Because I know people are into it. I just need to figure out what an entry form of it is, so that whenever I post questions like that, I legitimately am interested. Where I think a lot of people will just like question themselves, or like, oh, I don't think anyone very much like there's action figures behind me. It's like, oh, I don't know who likes this or who doesn't. I post questions all the goddamn time just to get people's reactions, and I get to engage with them. But also, I think it was yesterday or the day before I put up a post about I want to start doing on my podcast. I want to start doing groups of like have a roundtable of a bunch of female wrestlers and talk about their ups and downs. Have deathmatch wrestlers on, referees, and my way of going. Okay, well, I want to do it, so I know that if I want to do it, someone else either is curious about it or wants to do it. So
Okay,
I will now get a general feel of everyone's opinion on this.
great answer.
Social media is amazing.
I thought it was an odd question. I got to ask him about that. Oh, by the way, look what I got framed.
Oh,
Look
oh,
what I got framed. Look what I got framed.
aw,
Look what I got framed, huh?
adorable.
There it is, huh? Hold it over right. All
I
right.
saw it in the background of your you putting over Shogun, one of my good friends.
Yeah. No, he sent me a lot of messages on that. I was pleased to get that from Shogun. He's great talent. Hopefully, we'll see him a lot more in Impact Wrestling. I know it took about a year for him to get there, but hopefully, we'll see a lot more of him in Impact Wrestling, man.
Hell yeah.
All right, man. So Go Hard Pro. The first show is in the books. Tell me
hmm
about the experience running your own promotion and how stressful was it?
I wouldn't say it was that stressful, but if you go back and watch the last tag match on the show, I definitely did throw up, and you could audibly hear me gag in the video if you're looking for it. Of it was I, so I was gonna run a show, and then the pandemic happened. I was like, well, I guess I'm not running a show, and then I saw what Backyard Pro Vertigo did, so then I was like, oh well, I think we could do something like that. And the idea of having a show that all the storylines are based off of a movie or a general theme was an idea I had for like down the line after we have a bunch of serious shows to be like, hey guys, let's levity up the situation. Not everything needs to be super indie or strong style or hardcore comedy wrestling. Let's do it a little bit different. And we got a chance to do that with obviously the Grinch theme being the main one, but we also featured Home Alone. We featured Christmas Vacation with Kobe Durst and Evan Greenaway. It's like that wasn't going to be the first show. That was going to be like the 6th or 10th to just like throw in a wrench in the wheel. And what happened though is we did it that way. And what's funny is there was a 3-day period where the restrictions were going down that we were actually going to be allowed to have up to 50 audience members. And like, so we were figuring out that, and we went to the people who supported, asked if they would want to take it. If they supported over 100, they were going to get free ticket anyways. So I constantly said, I'm not a promoter, I'm a project manager, because I got a camera crew, I got wrestlers. Most of the wrestlers who wrestled their matches, it was their idea. Like even the tag match that I was in, that was Fuerza's idea of I was like, oh, if we did like the Grinch or something, or I think I didn't even mention the Grinch. I just said some sort of tag match, and he mentioned the Grinch and specifically mentioned Ethan Page as the spirit of Christmas. And I was like, ooh, I'll message him to see like how he feels about this. And he was clearly down. You saw him on the show.
Yeah, yeah.
And literally everyone's idea. I messaged Kobe Durst. He's a huge Christmas fan. So I just said, hey, what's your favorite Christmas movie and how would you turn that into a wrestling match? And he said a Frank Shirley your opponent match. And I said, oh, a reverse I quit match. And he regrets it. Whereas if you listen to Tiger and the Wolf, one of our earliest podcasts, I think it was episode 1 or 2, available on my Patreon, patreon.com/Brendan C. He mentions how that was like a rib on himself because if you hear him, he starts swearing while saying it. He's exhausted trying to say this goddamn monologue, but like I considered it as a project manager. I grabbed the camera crew, I grabbed the wrestlers, let them put their input in there. The Home Alone match, I just happened to pay for it. Vertigo edited and shot it. Hacker wrote and basically directed it. Like I was just there. And so it's like, I was a project manager. But still, even though I had no fans in there, I had to do refunds for tickets. I basically sold no tickets then because we weren't allowed to. Some wrestlers didn't get paid because they took their pay and donated it instead. Some wrestlers just refused, and I just gave them... I don't want to say I gave them drugs, but I gave them weed because it's legal, so I could say that at least.
Okay.
So like it was weird that I've ran one show in my life, and I checked off so many boxes of a promoter of like, oh, there's no fans there, but yet I still had to give refunds. Some people didn't get paid because they chose not to get paid. It's like, what? Oh, huh? But it's just fun. I'm really glad that was the first experience of many going down the line. And I did appreciate your review. I loved your review of it. Thank you very much for talking about it.
It was a great show. The Home Alone segment was just absolutely brilliant. I heard you were laughing throughout the entire filming of that. Is that true?
Steve Brown's a very emotional person, so I think he even broke his glasses during the filming of that, during one of Travis's suicide dives. But I wasn't laughing that hard because, like, you get the finished masterpiece of bit. I didn't see anything they filmed in the van until I was editing it at the end of the day. And by editing, I just mean I just put it at the end of what I was editing. So, like, I had all the matches individual, and I just got to pick and piece where, oh, I could put this here, I'll put this here, I'll set up this over here. And I didn't get to watch that until it was all edited. I'm like, okay. And you see all the jokes, but it still took us like 4 or 5 hours to film it. So I was actually reading Hornswoggle's book during the whole thing. You can kind of see me and Rip Impact because we shot it at HPW upstairs. That when they're running the ropes, you can kind of see our feet upstairs. But I was legit reading Hornswoggle's book while they were filming.
Well, let's go back to you throwing up for a second. You could actually hear you throwing up during. I'm gonna have to go back and listen for that now.
When Ethan Page, it's called shit canning when you go through the second rope, like Royal Rumble elimination style, but over the middle rope. And what happened was he was supposed to clothesline me over. And we filmed that match at 5 p.m. I got to Battle Arts Academy at like 9:30, 10 a.m. And all I had to eat that day was an extra large cold brew from Starbucks. I had no food. So by the time we shot filming this, we're going through everything. Because I was even running music for the previous matches, just watching everything and enjoying it. And then it led to part of the match where we hit each other, and then I got up. And when I try to tell him to shit can me, I have that burp that you have before you throw up, where you're just like, oh god, that's more than a burp. So I just grab him, and I'm just like, shit, and he understood what I meant. He turned it around, he throws me, and once I hit those goddamn stairs, you hear, and luckily it wasn't a lot of puke, because I just had a cold brew coffee, but it was a lot of phlegm on the stairs at Battle Arts.
Yeah, I'm gonna have to go back and listen to that. Listen.
Yep.
Oh man! So, is there anything about the first show that you feel you can improve on? Any aspects of the show that you didn't like that the next show, and I'm sure there'll be a next show that you can improve on?
I was gonna have a gauntlet match in it, but a lot of the stuff that and it would have featured a bunch of younger guys. We even had like a storyline that in like battle royals and such, it's hard to have a storyline, but we actually had, when I was piecing it together, it was going to be like 10 or 12 guys, all younger guys for the most part, and then a couple seasoned veterans in there, and it was going to feature them, have a little storyline, but because of restrictions and stuff, like we filmed at Battle Arts because it's such a big building that we could have all spaced out properly and have social distancing going on, where it's, I wish I used younger guys more, but I couldn't because of restrictions, and that's what it all comes down to. Where literally it all came down to restrictions of whatever our guidelines were at that moment that I couldn't affect. But I'm so happy we filmed that like the first weekend of November, and what's awesome too, it's we filmed it like the day after the Indiegogo ended, so like the money wasn't even deposited yet. I got the word. Also, that's the thing. I didn't pay the guys the day of the show because I didn't get the payout until a few days later. Mm-hmm. So everyone got paid now, or they chose to donate it for whatever. But like that goes on the list of promoter things where I didn't pay people the day of. But also, like besides the restrictions, like I learned some stuff. Like I wish I ate. Like that's probably number one on the list that I learned. I also learned like, probably on my shows, I'm going to be in like 4 ways or 6 ways and not be in such a featured role because wearing so many hats isn't the best. But I surrounded myself with Ryan Kovarik. He's the main director and filmographer and crew from Buzz Media for Crossbody also. That's why I got to choose. Like, I'm like, oh, Jamie and Ryan are great cameramen and ring announcers from Crossbody. I'm going to use them for this. Oh, Jimmy and Brad are good referees. Let me use them. Like, I got to pick and choose the people I wanted to have there. But also, because we filmed it at the beginning of November, no one, like, ratted it out that we were filming that day. So people were still asking, like, to get on the show at the end of November, the beginning of December, because you saw how hard I was promoting it. Yeah. But it's so funny that people didn't know we already had it filmed when they were asking to get on. And I'm just like, yeah, it's okay.
All right, cool, man. So did you talk to any other promoters to get advice before you put the whole thing together?
So I tried to run some sort of show like 3 or 4 years ago, and between Ben Ortmans and Notorious TID, Chris Tidwell, they informed me of how to run a show, how it's laid out, how this and that. But I've also spent the last 6 years in wrestling on the car rides with promoters, learning, watching, seeing what they do right, seeing what they do wrong. Like the reason I started my promotion, I joke that most people who start promotions, either they don't get booked anymore or their friends don't get booked anymore. So they're like, let's start our own promotion. Where I wrestled so many matches in 2019. And that's when I was planning on doing Go Hard Pro for the next year. And I was planning my stuff of not being in Ontario often, being more in the States, the West Coast, bouncing around. And I started it because I'm like, oh, it's so easy to point out, oh, you're doing this wrong, you're doing this wrong. Or why does it have to be like this? Instead of going, okay, well, I'm going to prove to you that there's a different way to do it. I was the first wrestling promotion in Ontario to use Indiegogo instead of GoFundMe. It's different where, and like also like I'm looking at things, I'm like, this is how it should be, because not because everybody in wrestling does it this way, but YouTubers do it this way. Indie filmmakers, like I saw it as it's an indie film that we're going to release on Christmas Eve. I didn't see it as a wrestling show that was going to go on IWTV. And also because I'm one of the few guys that I don't not work places because I'm told not to. I work at a lot of places. And the places I don't work at is more of a personal decision. I don't have someone above me going, you shouldn't do that, where I'm just like, no. So I have so many connections where you saw it in the show. It's one of the few shows where you saw commercials for other promotions. It was Go Hard Bro, but it was filmed at HWE's Battle Arts Academy, but put on Crossbody's YouTube account. It was such a bringing together of stuff. And even though every promotion in Ontario wasn't in the final product, that doesn't mean that they weren't approached or they didn't have time to do it, because the world's crazy right now. So, but even the fans got to interact on a different level, because I do feel wrestling is nothing without the fans. I can't really watch WWE because of that reason. And having like chops appear during the main event, telling Ethan Page to chop me, and goddamn, that chop, fuck. It hurt.
That was fantastic to see him go and give him the chops.
Yeah.
That was terrific to get him out. It caught me by surprise, but that was the great spot there, man.
It's
Great
great.
spot.
It was great cameos. People had their
Yeah.
holiday thing. Some people didn't like how long Kingdom James's rant was about Christmas movies, but it was an hour into it where that was basically the intermission. Once Kingdom starts talking, if you want to go to the washroom, that video is going to play for 5 minutes.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
go to the washroom. It was still entertaining. It was shot well. That's all that matters. Everything doesn't need to be 15 seconds.
No, but you did it. It was a great job, fantastic job that you did with the show. So when's the next show? Is there going to be another show or?
Well, I'm dumb, so I announced prom at the end, which was gonna be the original joking show on it. I won't reveal any details of it, but it's
Okay.
named prom. And what we did with when we're allowed to run real shows, Go Hard Pro is going to be entirely different.
Okay.
But prom will be like the holiday special. But the benefit of the world being what it is right now, if this was real life, the prom show would take place between May to June because that's prom season.
Mm-hmm.
But because the world's shut down right now, I can put that show up in October or November and it doesn't matter as long as it's just a fun show. So prom will happen this year, but we're already in another lockdown, or I think things are starting to open in a couple weeks. I don't know.
Yeah.
I saw a tweet, but I didn't fully read it all yet.
Yeah, no, they're going to start opening soon, hopefully, and hopefully we'll get some vaccines up here and everything will get back to normal and yeah, and get back to the show. I haven't been to a show in such a long time, man. It's
Yeah.
fucking it's oh, I cursed. See, you got me to curse, but no,
Good.
it's it's irritating, man. I want to get to a show, and I miss seeing everybody there. But
Yeah.
hopefully soon enough, man. But yeah, I was gonna say, the next show, is it gonna be gimmick based or is it gonna be mainly straight wrestling matches? But it is gonna be gimmick based then the next show.
Well, there was gimmicks on the last show, but it was all wrestling. Like even
Yeah.
Wade and Pretty Ricky, even the Home Alone cinematic match. Travis is doing a hot comeback. He's doing a shine. They're doing some super indie stuff. Like there was not a point during that show that. Because the one thing I didn't like about Backyard Pro is I'm not a fan of backyard wrestling. I didn't do it when I was younger. I don't seek out those videos. So for me, there was a bit of a disconnect. But like with the holiday special, if you like pro wrestling, yeah, you're probably not going to like every single match. You might even think
Yeah.
some of it's a disgrace to wrestling. But Evan and Kobe had a great match. Jody and Vertigo had a good match. Like there was stipulations, but I wouldn't say it was gimmick heavy. But
Okay.
definitely prom will be very much like what we did with the indie special.
Okay, you mentioned great matches. Saber versus Del Bruno. That
Dude,
was
straight match.
absolutely phenomenal. It just blew me away. Did you know it was going to be? Well, I'm sure you knew it was going to be good, but did you know it was going to blow everybody away the way it did? That was just one of the best matches I could say I've seen in a long time.
So my purpose with Go Hard Pro is I want to have 2 showcase matches per each show. And for the show that didn't happen, the main event was going to be Super Crazy versus Gabriel Fuerza.
Okay.
And that was because I heard Fuerza say a lot, that's his dude. That's who he wants to wrestle. I even gave him a Super Crazy action figure because I had one. But then the underneath match was gonna be Eddie Kingston versus myself. And Eddie Kingston is super big now, and like he's always been a bigger name, but that's if you knew wrestling. So I knew for sure that you announced those 2 matches, like, okay, those are gonna be 2 bangers of a match. And then in this COVID era, it was like, oh, we can't really fly in talent. And Shane Saber's a dude that I'm like, hey, you don't appreciate how good Saber is unless you work with him. Because he will make you shine and look so good. And then he gets lost in the shuffle because he doesn't have an ego. He's not going to put himself first, which is a good thing, but it's also a bad thing. You're not going to get as far as you should. So when I texted Kobe, what's your favorite holiday movie? And I'm texting everyone for holiday stipulations. I texted Saber and I said, hey, if you were to have a spotlight match against anyone in Ontario that can bring out the best in you, who would it be? And he's like, probably Del Bruno. And I was like, cool, I'll book Del Bruno. He's like, yeah, but if you want me to be in a gimmick match or anything, I'm like, I want you to shine and look like a boss, like look like a monster and show people how good you are. And he's like, okay. And they had the match. He had a great gear. He had new music. He's coming out of COVID like a legit heavyweight naturally.
Mhm.
And like, they had a match, and it was on the paper. I know they're both two good dudes, but then the match in an empty building where after every match besides mine, I was the first person that when Ryan, the cameraman, yelled cut, you would hear me clap first and be like, guys, that was awesome. Thank you so much. And I feel like as long as you're not putting the attention on yourself and you have that intention of, hey, I want you to look good. I want everyone to shine as much as they can, that you can't really fail because you're rising everybody up instead of a small little patch of things or even trying to stay even for everything. So I knew it was going to be good. And then when I saw how good it was, I was like, oh my God. And then and it was legitimately, they asked me, it's like, Del Bruno asked, you want me to be a good guy or bad guy? I'm like, it's all up to you. And that was legitimately like our version of what Canadian PWG would be. It's technical wrestling, has great matches, it has emotion, has storytelling. And I'm like, yeah, that was the blueprint. And then I got Reed, who does the commentary for A1. He added so much to it. And I was like, yeah, this is my match. And I even promoted it when I announced both of them as separate talent announcements. Like, their match is going to be great. And while I was editing the show, I was like, because I will say, because I threw up and I was in the match, that I think my match was the worst on the show. But while I was editing the whole show, I thought to myself, I'm like, I don't know if this is good anymore. And what's funny is I've never had that thought before. I've heard a lot of creators get lost in it and just be like, I don't know if this is good or not. Some comedians and such. And I'm literally watching this. I'm like, I don't know if this is good. I'm processing. I was afraid to like upload it. And I was just like, hey, I sent it over. It's uploading. I'm like, oh, I don't know. And then I saw some other wrestling, and I'm not vocal about the wrestling I don't like, but there's some small things where I'm really happy to be a Canadian wrestler where we're taught properly how to make the small things mean more, and it's not just gif. Where it's like I watched something a day after I finished editing, and I was like, oh, never mind. Yeah, our show was good. A little humble there, but
The show was very good. The show was very, very good, man. I know you're on the Crossbody YouTube channel. Are you going to eventually get your own YouTube channel for Go Hard Pro?
well, it would definitely have its own its own YouTube channel in the future, but also like I distribution is a weird thing in a good way. There's so many options and avenues. Like I do believe, like I'll say this at least, if the world opens up tomorrow, within 8 months, I will be trying really hard to have weekly, like Thursday night Go Hard Pro shows. And specifically, and like, I want to say it enough that it's like, I'll hold myself accountable that once I go, I literally just looked at a video I did in 2013 and I still have the same emotions and motivations that I had then, but I have more proof now and I have more validation. I'm like, oh, and also there's a little more bass in my voice. My voice is that's high pitched. And there's all this stuff where I'm like, oh wow, I've been more grizzled, but I haven't been bitter. So it's like a great thing to look back and be able to have that when I look back in these interviews and Go Hard Pro is 2, 4, 5 years old. But the weekly idea would be, I want to feature younger guys, and the point of this is to give guys opportunities. And it would be maybe it's the first and the third Thursday of the month, there's a show in the GTA, and then the second Thursday there's a show in London every month, and then the fourth Thursday there's a show in Hamilton every month. And like I'm working out what the shows will look like. I'm like, well, I don't want to put all of those shows online for everyone just because they are very much like dark matches. They're like Sunday Night Heat, they're house shows, and we would have one big show in Vaughan every 6 to 7 weeks. But it would literally be like, I'm playing around with Patreon right now to learn how it would be. I crowdfunded that show by using Indiegogo, where it's, I think like Go Hard Pro would have a Patreon where if you want to watch the weekly shows, you'll get a free ticket because the tickets will only be $5 or $10 at the door. You'll get a free ticket, plus you get the hard cam copy of that. And also, I think it's cool, and I see this as a fan perspective of, you take a bunch of photos and videos at shows because you want to remember it. But also, when you have your phone in front of you, you're losing out a little bit of that experience because you're now experiencing it through a screen. But if you bought a ticket, and you bought a VIP ticket too, so it costs even more money, what if the show happened Sunday afternoon, you enjoyed it, you're driving home, But by Friday night, you get an email link to you that has a hard copy of the hard cam just of the show that you now get to rewatch it. You don't need to subscribe to a IWTV or a High Spots to watch the show back. You now get the hard cam version, but then also there is the fact that there's on IWTV you can watch the great quality with whoever our commentators are. But that means on the weekly shows, like you have a podcast, if you told me, hey, I want to try to commentate a show, I'm like, cool. The next show in London is on Thursday, March 9th. Are you free that night to try to commentate? I'm sure you would say yes if you're asking to commentate. And I'm like, yeah.
Are you offering me a job right now?
It's not a job.
Okay,
We did not discuss pay.
I'm kidding.
But that's the thing of giving those opportunities to people where you're used to having a microphone in front of you. So why not? And then also, if we have a Patreon, and both me and you are podcasters, so what would a podcast of a wrestling promotion be like? Would it be half us looking back on the show it was, doing alternative commentary for shows maybe? You get the behind the scenes dirt on it. What do you get there? Do you get fan questions? Do you get fancy stuff? Do you even like build storylines into it a little bit and make it that blending the line of reality and fiction between pro wrestling? Like there's so many options and avenues to do where the old here's a show card, here's the graphics, here's the promotion, the show ends, here's the next thing. It's how do we get fans to feel like they're a part of the company? And I think Progress did it best in the UK, where when they needed a new ring canvas, they crowdfunded it, and if you crowdfunded it, your name went on the sides of the canvas. So like you would actually see your name on the shows going forward, where I don't understand why no one's done that in the area, where just because no one's doing it here doesn't mean people haven't tried and succeeded, or if they failed, why did they fail? I'm never trying to be successful. I'm just constantly trying to goddamn fail. And I haven't failed yet. Or I have failed, but I've grown from it, so I don't remember it as a failure. I learned from it. So I'm being successful, and I'm constantly, I feel like other people will look at me and go, oh, he's lucky because of this or this. And I'm just like, this worked out? Huh? What?
But you will run shows in Windsor as well, right? You'll come out here to Windsor?
No.
No? Oh, man.
Windsor is BCW territory.
I know, but they never run shows anymore. So, well,
Hey,
even before COVID, they weren't really running shows. But
they basically started running Impact. They just blended over to Nashville.
Yeah, that's true.
See, here's the thing though. Like I picked Hamilton, the GTA, and London. Because they're all within a 2-hour driving distance of me. But that's also where the prominent wrestling schools are. So there's the Wrestle Factory in London, there's HPW in Hamilton, there's so much talent in general in the greater Toronto area so that's why like Windsor wouldn't be on it, because I would still need to put a ring in a ring truck, drive to London, pack it all up at the end of the night, and then probably go to work at 2 or 3 in the morning.
Well, London's only 2 hours for me anyway, so if you're in London, that's fine. I'll drive out to London,
especially when you have to commentate.
Yeah, I know. I mean, I'm nervous about this gig, man. I could commentate, but you mentioned the Patreon page, so I guess that was the inspiration to start the Patreon page to raise money for the promotion.
Well, I've been trying to do a Patreon for maybe like 2-ish years because I saw the ability for it, and you've seen the t-shirts that I put out. They are very interesting, and I care about the design, so I've never been a dude that just designs a t-shirt every 2 months to sell it to people. And I'm just like, there's only so many t-shirts people can have in their closet or wear in general that I'm like literally I'm on the brink of I'm in the middle of moving, so I have like boxes behind me, and I have a bunch of like collectibles, so I'm not a minimalist, but I was like, it takes less brain power if you don't have to think about what you're going to wear the next day. So I'm like, well, what if I just get like 7 black t-shirts, 7 pairs of pants, and I was like, I just don't have to think. And I also look like a cartoon character, which I think is funny. If like people are like, I think he wears the same thing every day, and you open up my closet and it looks like Homer Simpson's closet of just the same thing. But like also like that's only because I have so much stuff, and in my mind I'm always nihilistic in the way I'm just like, okay, I'm gonna delete everything, screw it. And what happens was in thinking about all of that stuff, I'm like, okay, well, I want to do a Patreon so I can interact with my fans, and like now that Zoom's a thing, it's a lot more fun. but I'm just like, okay, I want just a little bit. And it's also a way of making more income and making that, because breadcrumbs make crumb cake, where you, instead of just focusing on one thing. And the opportunity finally presented itself. I did the Indiegogo, and then I did the Patreon, and luckily it's going well. It's going so well that I'm able to add more shows to it. So like I'll announce it here first, because I just confirmed it with the guys recently. But there was 2 episodes of This Is Brendan that involved conspiracies that I never put up just because life got in the way. And I put it up, and then I messaged Pretty Ricky, Alexia Nicole, Gabriel Fuerza, and actually Jimmy the Ref. And I was like, yo, do you guys want to do a weekly conspiracy theory podcast for my Patreon? And they're all like, hell yeah. And it's also because I can pay them. And it goes, okay, well, are you okay for this? We'll record it once a month, 90 minutes, and then break it up. And they're all down, because I think everyone wants to do stuff, but most people don't know what to do right now. And then they need someone like me that's dumb enough to be like, yeah, we can do anything right now. Let's do it. Where it's other people are starting podcasts, which is great, but they're where I was in 2012 when I started doing podcasts. So I have almost a decade of that hustle and that grind. And the motivation wasn't the promotion for Patreon, but it was YouTubers, it was podcasters that I liked and I followed. Like I think the sign I know that my Patreon was successful was I already subscribed to multiple Patreons already, and my Patreon paid for my Patreon. And it's a way of going, okay, well, that's one less bill you have to worry about a month, where it's when people are like, oh man, I'm not making $2,000 a month. Like, that doesn't matter. Do you need $2,000 a month? And then they start realizing their expenses and everything. And then maybe their expenses are $900 or $1,100. And once you knock off, say, your cell phone bill or your electrical bill or whatever, and then you knock off your mortgage, it's all these small steps that people don't think about, because they're like, well, if it's not $1 million, I'm not successful. Whereas I go, well, 35,000 a year is the poverty line. So try to work towards that before trying to work for $1 million.
That's true, man. True. Awesome advice, man. You have, at last I looked, you had 18 patrons. And you mentioned that if you hit 30, you're going to reenact the Katie Vick promo. So are you going to do that when you hit 30? Is that true? Are you going for it?
100%. I'm not. Here's the thing. I might lie, and I have the best of intentions to put up my content in a timely manner, put up whatever. But time gets in the way, mental fatigue, me being down or whatever. I legitimately had like a manic episode last weekend. Then I realized one of my friends confided in me that they had an anxiety attack or like a panic attack recently. And I was like, I'm like thinking back, and they told me their symptoms. I was like, I think I've been having anxiety attacks for like 12 years, and I never knew it. And legitimately in the pandemic, I felt sad sometimes, and I needed to ask myself, I'm like, I'm sad right now, question mark? Yeah. And then I go, why? And sometimes there is a reason, like if one of your friends disappoints you, or a significant other, or someone you care about, okay. But sometimes the pandemic, there is a disease that we cannot see that's legitimately floating in the air and killing people. And some people don't think it's real. Some people are thinking governments are doing a horrible job at it. And just that stress of, even if you don't know anyone affected by it, that stress is just in the air. It's in the ether. So there's nowhere your body's not feeling that. And there's sometimes where I'm like, I'm sad. I'm out of breath. Like, I don't cry. I wish I cried, because it would solve so many problems. But I get that shortness of breath, eyes get a little dry. And I would say, I'm like, well, this is when a real human would cry a little bit, or liquid would come out of their tear duct. And I'm not that way, unfortunately. So I look at it, I'm like, okay, well, is there a reason for this? No? Okay, never mind. I guess I gotta power through. And this whole week, like, the weather has not been the best. So, like, I just been sleeping a lot. And then I realized, am I sleeping because I'm stressed, or am I sleeping because I'm tired, or am I sleeping because I have COVID and I'm exhausted? Like, there's all these thoughts going in my mind. And I think it's just like, it's cold, your bed is warm. You go to work at 3 a.m. It's even colder then. That's why you're sleeping.
So you are getting some sleep, because I think last time we spoke, you said you were getting like 3 minutes of sleep a night. But but you are sleeping better now, though.
My weekends still get a little screwed up because I become kind of a normal person on the weekend hours, but
Okay.
very much I now have regular sleep patterns. I've actually recently started having some dreams, and I haven't had dreams in like 10 years, which sounds kind of depressing when you say I haven't dreamt in 12 years, but I have chased dreams. I just haven't fallen asleep listening to it.
Yeah, I've been having some weird dreams lately. Also, I had a dream I I bought a Harley Davidson motorcycle, and I'm riding around my neighborhood on my new Harley Davidson motorcycle. And I wake up and I was like, damn, it was just a dream. But
You having daydreams of a midlife crisis?
I think so. I think I'm having some strange dreams. That there are ghosts. I'm watching a lot of ghost shows right now, and I have dreams that there's ghosts all over my house and they're chasing me. So it's strange. Which reminds me, when are we gonna go look for a ghost? I thought we
When's
were
the
going ghost
world
hunting.
when's the world gonna open up?
Oh yeah, we have to go look for some ghosts, man.
I
Maybe we
can't
could bring
even
them
see.
on. Maybe we could bring them on the podcast and talk to them, man.
I haven't even seen my nonna more than 2 times in the last year. Her birthday's actually next Saturday, so I'm gonna at least sneak over to her place to drop her off some flowers. But yeah, I feel like if I can't see my nonna, I can't really go ghost hunting. Also,
Okay. Well, eventually, hopefully, we're able to get together and look for some damn ghosts, man. Uh,
100%. I need more content.
all right, cool, man. Cool. So, also on the Patreon page, you posted advice that you got from RJ City in 2016, which was hysterical. You go, stop throwing the fireball so much. You're not Super Mario. Did you? I've never seen you throw a fireball at somebody. Did you used to throw fireballs?
So I used to do magic, and I think as a magician, you never stop doing magic. You always do it as like just random BS to say. But like that's why I have a playing card on my form. It's because I used to do magic tricks, and there was a time I would do it once or twice, and then there was like a 6 week period where I was doing it like every week, and this was clearly back in 2016. And I like looking back now that if I randomly message someone, because I don't know if you're the same way about this because you're a little older than me, where it's a lot of my interactions have been on Facebook Messenger or whatever for the last 10 years. And there's sometimes you go to message someone you haven't messaged in a while, but then you see the old messages. So you get a little curious and you see what the last few messages were. And most of the time, they didn't end on the best of terms. And you're like, oh, this is why we don't talk. Maybe I shouldn't message this person. But also, you have to message the person sometimes. And RJ was one of the guys that 5 years ago, every now and then I would go through bursts, and I normally do it publicly now where I'll tag people on Twitter or Facebook. But back then I would private message them and be like, thank you for any advice and all the critiques that you helped me along the way. And for RJ, it was I wanted to compliment him on how good his Fight Network documentary came out, because I think there's so much you can learn from that as an entertainer, as a pro wrestler, as a pro wrestling fan, that there's so much said in there if you really pay attention and you let it get you. So I messaged him, it was great, and he even said like, I'm so glad you enjoyed it. I know you're one of the dudes that would understand that, especially like we went over some very specific, if you've been in locker rooms or you've been a talent and you've dealt with promoters, when he mentioned that whole you do that everywhere else but not here, it's like that is such a real mentality that it's funny. And I looked back at the old message and it was literally, thanks for any feedback, and it's like, no worries, stop throwing fireballs, you're not Super Mario. And that is just how RJ is. He cares and he's a funny dude, and he will kind of shit on you, but not you won't feel that way.
That was great advice. He's a great guy, though.
The
RJ
best.
he's awesome, man. On Facebook as well, you posted a picture of yourself that at the time you posted it was 1,827 days ago, which is now 1,837 days ago. What's the difference between Holden Albright now and 1,837 days ago?
I'm trying to, it was probably definitely a fat version of me, because it was like
You want me to see if I can find it and I'll show you?
please do.
Okay, let's see if we can.
Because I also put up another photo today that just said 2011, and it was a side profile where my head is definitely shaped differently.
I think.
Oh, was it like a baby photo though?
No, it wasn't a baby photo. I know there was one you put up where you're sitting with a beer, and you said one of us is now a lawyer.
Yep, that was my buddy Ilya. He actually is just outside of London
Yeah, that
or
is
Windsor.
that one there. One of us is a lawyer.
Yep, my buddy Ilya. He fights for human human resources claims and such. Like he's a great dude.
See if I can find. Um, no, that's not it. Sorry, I'm just scrolling to see if I could
No
find it
worries.
quickly.
That's what we can edit for, right?
Yeah. Let's see. I'm not finding it. Sorry. I think I've gone too far. Well, what's 10? Well, it would have been 10 days ago, so it should have been on the 26th of January then. Let me go back. 20. This is all staying in the. I'm not editing. This is all staying in the podcast. So I'm not gonna edit anything. No, I'm not finding it, man. Did you
1,000 days. No, I'm dumb. I don't delete anything, unfortunately.
Okay. Yeah, I don't.
1,000 divided by 365. Oh, oops.
Yeah, I'm not. I don't. I don't see it here. But what I can show you though is my my new screen on my phone. If you want to see it.
Do it. Do it. What is it? Is it us?
Ooh.
Oh God.
Ooh. Hey, I'm Holden Albright. How you doing?
Dude, the best part is I was very not sober. That's how I like to say it. I was very not sober either the day before or the day after that.
Okay.
And I posted like 8 photos on my Instagram story of just me smiling and giving a thumbs up.
Okay. Okay. Are you looking for it now? Or are you looking for the picture now, or?
I'm looking down below. Well, because you said 10 days ago, right?
Yeah, unless it was. I don't know. Unless it was on your on the Holden Albright page.
It might be. I barely use the Holden page.
Yeah, it's probably. I probably just. It's probably around here somewhere. I can't.
See now you need to take screenshots when you take questions of stuff.
Yeah, no, I should have taken a screenshot. That's
Well,
totally,
these are learning moments. These are learning moments.
yeah. No. Here's another. While I'm looking, here's a question. Why do you want to name your next pet Austin?
Yeah. So I named my first cat Spades because he's a black cat.
Okay.
And he was my second cat, but then my username on stuff was Spades because of magic. And then my wiener dog's name is Dexter. And I just went down the rabbit hole of Stone Cold Steve Austin home videos recently.
Okay.
That I'm just like, I love Stone Cold. Why have I never named one of my pets Austin? So I just randomly tweeted that because it's true. Oh, okay, never mind. I found the photo. It's me at C4 with Space Monkey.
Oh, okay. Oh, that's right. It was Space Monkey. Okay, yeah.
Yeah, so that was 1,827 days ago. It was that was 2015. Matt Grant is in there because he had his podcast at the time. Brad Myers has his hand around Space Monkey, and this is my that's the silver suit I always mention in podcasts that I say when I used to set up rings and such. And it is on my Holden Albright Facebook page, and it's literally. I would show up to shows in like t-shirt and jeans, whatever, set up, tear down the ring. But in the meantime, I would go get changed specifically into that fucking vest and nice pants and tie. And it had this appear of professionalism. Dress for the job you want. And it was an old photo that Matt Grant put up. So I saved it. I put it up myself, had a funnier caption than he did. And it's just like, not every caption, especially during the pandemic, I realized I knew a lot of people, myself included. We would use music lyrics as our caption for our Instagram photos.
Mm-hmm.
And then during the pandemic, I'm looking at all my archives of all these photos. And in the moment, it might be the lyrics spoke to me or they reflected what was going on in the photo or video or time period.
Okay.
But then looking back on it, even 1 year, not even saying the 4 or 5, 6, just 1 year later, and I look at it, I'm just like, what do I think I am? Deep? What the hell? And I'm like yelling at past Brendan. It's just like, no. So it's one of those things I'm like, when I'm posting on my Instagram regularly again, I'm never gonna quote music lyrics again. But I've now moved that over to random tweets and random Facebook statuses. Like a few months ago, like 6 or 7 months ago, I posted the lyrics for Randy Orton's "Burn in My Light" theme, which
Okay.
is very much screw anyone that didn't believe in me. I'm gonna make you regret it of not believing in me. And now I've gone down the Megan Thee Stallion route recently. My music taste is very diverse, but one of the lines she has in one of her songs is, "Please don't wish me well if you used to give me hell." And I'm like, yeah, like those are decent lyrics, but what am I gonna do? Put it on a photo of me bleeding on my Instagram, put that quote on the bottom, and think I'm like Nostradamus or something? Nah, screw that. I'm like the reverse of a superstar, where like superstars would be like, I'm larger than life, I know everything. Whereas I'm like, I'm dumb. And then I don't critique other people, I critique past versions of myself. And I'm like, yo, I'm dumb now. I was so dumb 10 years ago. And I was allowed to vote.
Yeah, you're not dumb, man. I think you're a very smart, very witty individual, man. I don't think you're dumb at all.
See, I'm witty. That's how you think I'm smart. It's like the egg or the chicken, which came first.
And I was just kidding. That wasn't really my screensaver. It was just a picture I blew up on the phone. In case you got freaked out that I have you as my screensaver on the phone. That's
I
just a
look
picture.
so happy in that photo. I just took a shower. I think I was a little not sober.
It was oh, I just lost it again. Yeah, you where was it? It was which yeah, it was so you had just gotten out of the shower, so you were happy because you took a shower?
No,
Is
I
that
was not sober, so I really enjoyed the shower.
you were not sober?
See,
Are you sober now? Are you sober now?
dude, the coffee kicked in. The coffee kicked in the middle of this. I am sober. I kind of napped. I didn't sleep that well today, but yeah, I'm as sober as I can pass any test right now.
Okay. Okay.
Unless it's like a math test. I struggled with grade 10 math, bro.
Okay. Well, we won't give you any math tests right now, man.
Thank you.
So,
Thank you.
so I have a few more questions, man. A few more questions, and we can wrap this up. So how's the Funko Pop collection coming along? And do you have any new additions to it?
I have no new additions, mostly
Okay.
because I accidentally bought doubles of some stuff I had. And I'm like, this is bad. Especially like I told you, I'm packing up boxes. So a lot of my stuff is put away. But when I was going through it, I looked, I was like, oh, damn it. I have the same, I bought the same thing. And what I do love about Funko Pops, especially because I'll buy like a bunch of them at a time, I now have go-to gifts that if I ever meet someone that one of my coworkers loves, not Pinky in the Brain, Tom and Jerry. And he loves it. And then I was going down the rabbit hole of Funko Pops, and I actually have a YouTube video of me doing like a Facebook marketplace thing of all of these.
Mm-hmm.
And then I randomly found Tom and Jerry, and I thought they were cute, so I bought it. And then I told my buddy this, and he's like, how much do you want for it? I'll buy it off you. I'm like, I wasn't sure if I was selling it or not. He's like, I love it. I'm like, okay, well, I paid $40 for the set. Okay, I'll give you 40. And it was just like, okay, cool. And then my girlfriend likes Johnny Cash, and I had a Johnny Cash Funko Pop. And I was like, I like it, but anything can be replaced, and I know this will mean more to her, and so I gave it to her.
Oh, that's nice.
I also gave Anthony Kingdom James a George Jefferson Funko Pop.
Okay.
Because his hairline reminds me of George Jefferson.
You two have a podcast going on, don't you?
Hell yeah! Every month on my Patreon.
Let's hear about the podcast. Let's hear about that podcast.
So you asked if the Patreons for the promotion or whatever. It's legitimately the Indiegogo was only successful because Kingdom James has done Kickstarters for comic books and different projects. So I got to lean on him for advice. He's had a Patreon. I got to lean on him for that, and just talking to him. He's probably like my biggest influence, well-rounded in my life of wrestling, comedy, everything, that believing in myself. Like even he's doing Twitch right now, and he's having some memory card problems. So his stream last night was going a little iffy. But now I get to learn, like, oh, is that your issue? So that when I eventually start streaming, I can fix those things. And he also is one of the dudes. He's the reason I never message promoters to help set up anymore, because I messaged him like 6 years ago and he ignored my message. So I didn't help him at the show, and now he's like my best friend. Like, we text and call each other every day because he's old, so he likes talking on the phone.
Speaking of Twitch, is Twitch next for you? Are you gonna start your own Twitch channel?
I have ideas for Twitch. I like video games. I just don't have time, so I can do it. Like, literally today, I was thinking, like, oh, it'd be super cool, because unfortunately, I can't play wrestling video games anymore. I didn't have time to play video games for like the past 7 years. And then the last couple, I found some downtime and I played like 2 video games. And what's funny now is I actually play racing games while I edit my stuff. And Gabriel Fuerza texts me a screenshot of my PSN username just going, your fascination with racing games interests me entirely. And I literally sent him a photo of my laptop rendering a podcast while I'm playing NASCAR behind on the screen. I'm like, it's just how I pass time when I'm editing stuff. And he's like, interesting. But I see everyone doing Twitch, and I'm like, okay, but also it feels like everyone's doing the same thing. So I was like, oh, it'd be super cool if I did like, and I could also break it out into a YouTube thing of, if we grabbed 16 wrestlers and we picked like SmackDown versus Raw 2006, and you picked your individual wrestler, and then we have like, I don't know real sports, but in my mind, I think, oh, well, no, actually, like the Euro and FIFA leagues are like this, where you have like different groups and the standings advance. I was like, oh, well, everyone wrestles each other in a singles match, and then there's a tag match, and then there's a 4-way, and then there's another tag match. And it's like, oh, that'd be cool that like, oh, every Saturday, this is what we're going to do. But also, I hope that when I reach 100 episodes of the podcast, which I just uploaded 70 this week, that I want to do like a 14-hour live stream, and it would have individual, like, this is Brendan ABC podcast, Tiger and the Wolf, but then also we're just live streaming whatever for like 15-20 hours just to like burn myself out, apparently.
Okay, man. 14 hours. If you want me to be involved with that, man, I'd be happy to be involved in that 14-hour stream.
I will send you the Zoom link to
all right.
pop on.
Sounds good. Fair enough, man. So last question, and wrap it up. I've seen a few posts on social media about major promotions not giving Canadian pro wrestlers enough opportunities, despite many of them being ready. What are your thoughts on that?
Well, you look at North America, and you're like, yeah, Canada, US, Mexico. But that doesn't mean there aren't country borders. And if Canada's so big, like Ontario is the size of England, pretty much, that whole country. So everyone blowing up there, where it's, I have a pet peeve when people say Canadian wrestling and then they only mention GTA or Ontario people, because it's just small-minded. There are guys like Eli Surge and Judas Icarus on the West Coast. There's guys like Covey Chris on the East Coast, Northeast.
Yeah.
You have Tyler Colton in the in Winnipeg. Like, you have Quebec. It's just like there's all these things going on that when people are like, oh, Canadian wrestling, and it isn't so much major promotions giving an opportunity. It's more about like big indie companies and having, because they keep saying we need a bigger platform, we need this. And I was on the Scumbags podcast, which is a really fun group of guys, and they mentioned, because I was a little too honest in my views and opinions of some promotions, like, I don't like voicing my opinion on current WWE, AEW, or whatever, because I have when you do your MLW shows, you're a fan. You're critiquing it from a fan's perspective. You say what you like, you say what you don't like. I don't think, as a professional wrestler, my opinion on professional wrestlers that are performing at the highest degree of sport matters. Why would someone that plays basketball at the YMCA every weekend critique the NBA and think that they know more, or LeBron isn't worth this? Where I'm not a sports guy, but I know LeBron plays basketball. I know that much. Okay. And it's just like, why would I critique someone, especially if I'm trying to go there? Like, if I'm playing college basketball, I shouldn't talk shit or talk down to or criticize stuff in the NBA because that's where I want to be. So I look at that, it's like, no. And then when all my friends bring up, we need a bigger platform, we need more eyes on us. Yes and no. There is a way to do that, but if you're saying we need more, you're not going to appreciate what you do have. And I was literally talking to my girlfriend today, and I'm like, I think when anyone ever tells me I'm inspiring, I literally just got a message on Twitter that was like, dude, I love your in-ring work, but you also have a great personality. Thank you, and I appreciate you. And that compliment means way more to me than, man, your match was awesome or this or that. Saying like your personality, but then when I hear from people that they think I'm inspiring or whatever, I think about all my whole life and all the ups and downs, and there's so many downs throughout it that I'm like, I don't deserve this. I've heard it called imposter syndrome or survivor remorse, and I'm just like, I don't deserve any of this, so why am I getting any of it? Where there's people that they just expect everything, that, and especially in pro wrestling. In football, you'll go to a compound and they'll measure how high you can jump, how fast you can go, and how many balls you can catch. In wrestling, there's no checklist. There is no, you need to be this tall, have this body fat percentage, have this kind of look, have this personality. It's literally is just a crapshoot. Anyone at any moment. There's the moments where the WWE is only hiring guys that are under 30 years old and over 6'4". Then there's guys that get hired for 2 years, like Colin Delaney or James Ellsworth. Like, there is no secret formula that when everyone's going, well, I want more attention, especially when wrestlers look at other wrestlers. And like I said, I watched some wrestling that I didn't think was 100% good. And I'm just like, okay, never mind. I can appreciate this more. Whereas other people will look at it and go, well, like, not for me saying this, someone else to be like, well, I'm a better wrestler than them, so why do they get this attention? And it literally is, well, do they sell tickets to the show? Do they live 5 minutes away? Are they centrally located? And unfortunately, people's perceptions, and it's always perception, you can't see the woods through the trees, stuff like that, of when your point of view is privileged, very much like, because Gabriel Freza put up a long post recently on Twitter about it, and Josh tagged on to it, and Mike Bailey, and they were all good points. And it's literally, when you think people don't work hard, that's why they're not getting the opportunities. Well, are the people who saying this, do they live in the Northeast where there's a whole bunch of indie shows? Because I'm pretty sure there's guys in California and guys in Seattle, and before Florida, Texas is its own island. There's so many islands in wrestling, but the only way to get exposure is to bet on yourself. Go on an airplane to a new territory, a new country, go somewhere, create new content, try to diversify yourself, give a reason for people to like you. I'm one of the guys that if you follow me on Twitter, I'll probably private message you and A, not be a creep, and B, I would just say thanks for following. I appreciate it. Like, it doesn't hurt to do that, and it creates an actual fan that cares more about you. And when you just think I'm a pro wrestler, so everyone should pay attention to me, it's like, no, you have to be a good person first.
Oh, absolutely. Fantastic answer, man. I agree 100%, man. Fantastic answer.
I just realized, because I sidetrack a lot, when I brought up
Yeah.
the Scumbags guys, because I was too honest on their podcast,
Yeah.
they even mentioned, am I afraid that I won't be booked from the bigger promotions? And they meant Ontario. They're like, well, are you afraid you're not going to be booked from promotions? And I think I was on my phone looking at something, and I just laughed, and I went, I'll make my own. And I think that sums up my personality of, no matter what promotion is in Ontario specifically, none of them are a big promotion because they're not AEW, WWE, New Japan, ROH, or MLW. Just because you're a big promotion in a small pond doesn't make you a big promotion. And I'm just like, no, I'll make my own, because I'm a big, you can list all the problems in the world. How many solutions are you coming up with?
Absolutely, man. Absolutely, man. And I know a while ago you mentioned Kobe Christ, and you know how I feel. You got to promise me when everything gets back to normal, you're going to book Holden Albright against Kobe Christ. We have to have that match, man. Absolutely have to have that.
100%.
Have to have that, and either if it's in Kaizen, if it's in Go Hard Pro, if it's in Hawaii, if it's in South Africa, it's got to be somewhere. That match has to happen somewhere, man.
I want Go Hard Pro to be a coming together great talent. So I want to have like a carload from Ohio that comes for a show, and then the next time a carload from Michigan comes, and then I want, because my goals post pandemic are, I don't know if I'll be able to cross the US border in the next 2 years just because of country restrictions, but I'm pretty sure I'll be able to travel in Canada. So I'm like, okay, well, I want to wrestle one weekend out of the year, not in Ontario. So I go to the Maritimes for a Friday, Saturday, Sunday. I'll go to Vancouver for a Friday, Saturday, Sunday. I'll go to Winnipeg for a weekend. I just want to build up a brand of myself, but also I'll develop fans all over the place, but also friends. Like me and Eli Surge have never met in person, but we've private messaged each other. His gimmick is kind of interesting and conspiracy-ish. Mine, I like that stuff, so I'm more of a murderer. And I'm just like, oh, we'll mesh, we're interesting. And then I'm like, well, when I'm given the opportunity, though, I would love if I did like a one weekend tournament, and literally it's like what TNA used to do with the World Cup. And it would be, this team is representing Manitoba, this team is representing Vancouver, this team's representing Maritimes, this team's representing Quebec, and then these two teams are representing Ontario. And it would be like 4 guys or whatever for each team. And it's just mixing all those up to have like a Canadian showcase. And legitimately, Josh Alexander, when he replied to Furza's thing, and he just went, I'm working on a way to showcase Canadian talent. And this is where it comes in my privileged point of view of that. I know that if Josh is putting together something that showcases Canadian talent, I know I'll have a spot because he's helped me so much along. But the only reason he's helped me is because I've been willing to listen and learn. There's so many people that think that they did this on their own or they did whatever, where that's a lie. Like, yeah, if one door closes, another one opens. But how does a door open? Like, we joke about ghosts, but doors aren't just opening. There needs to be someone that puts their hand out and lifts them up. And I'm one of the guys. I know you talk to a lot of the younger guys in the area. I know my name comes up as a guy that helps them every now and then. Yeah. It's because I don't expect anything except effort. That's the only thing I expect. That's the only thing I want anyone to do. And my biggest pet peeve is people that claim they work hard, but they're lying to themselves. And I can see the people that work hard, so I want to help those guys out. And it's one of those things of, it always comes down to perception. It's communication and perception are the two biggest deterrents in life.
Well, I tell you, that Super X Cup, Canadian Super X Cup would be absolutely fantastic, man. Or not Super X Cup. It's tag. What is?
I think it's basically the Super X Cup.
Super. Sure. Okay, but yeah. It's tag team. Yeah, that's a terrific idea, man. And hopefully that you can get that going soon, man. If I tell you, if that was out in Toronto, I'd drive the 4 hours to go see that. How about that, man?
Well, thank you very much. That would be something that I would want to like tour around, where it's like, yeah. I would want to do that, where it's like something closer to Windsor, St. Catharines, something closer to London, Toronto, and then there.
What about heading out to like another province? Would you do that, or you just stay in Ontario?
I think that would be more so like what me, Fuerza, Alexia, and Pretty Ricky did at Kaizen, where all 4 of us came in as a carload. But say if I would want to do versus shows instead of like a whole show somewhere else, because it's also, someone asked me advice for running a show, and the number one advice I said was talk to the promoters in the area, because that's where you end up accidentally stepping on toes. And that's just like one of the things of, there's a lot of headaches in life. Life isn't about solving all the problems, but it's trying to hurt as minimal people along the way.
All right, man. Cool. Absolutely, man. So let's wrap this up. If you have anything to plug, feel free to plug. We talked about your Patreon, social media, merchandise, anything you want to plug. Now's the time, man.
Well, thank you very much for having me on your podcast, because right after we record this, we're going to record my podcast. So Lewis is going to be on mine. We're going to swap hats. We're going to go. That podcast is called This is Brendan, which is my real name. And I've, especially the last 20 or so episodes, it's become more of a life podcast and trying to get into the psyches of people. And so I'm not too sure when you're going to drop this, but your interview on my podcast is going to be up in March.
Okay.
But yes, so this is Brendan on Spotify, Apple. I'm pretty sure you can find it anywhere podcasts are. You can follow me at Holden Pro on things. And then once my Patreon, which has exclusive podcasts, videos of such. I just put up my first vlog from 2013, and I feel like I look like a bitch in that. But we need to be that way. We need that perspective. And I'm very happy that I get to look back on everything now and go, okay, I've grown. And there's some parts where I'm like, I haven't grown. So I need to grow up now. And I'm almost 30. But yeah, that's patreon.com/Brendan C. BRENDONE, the letter C. So thank you very much for having me on.
Oh, well, thank you so much for joining me again, and I look forward to doing this again. Really, really well. We're going to do it in a few minutes, right? but I love to have you back anytime, man. Anytime you want to come back to this show, you're always welcome, man.
Thank you. I love it.
My pleasure, man. My pleasure. So this has been the Alliance Pro Wrestling Network Sunday special interview. Again, want to thank my guest, Holden Albright. And until next time, thank you very much. Take care. Bye-bye. Stay safe, everyone. So long. Bye-bye.